Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me for tonight's episode. Tonight I'll be narrating a story from one of my subscribers. And again, as always, I remind you all to please be mindful and respectful in the comments field below. Sharing your personal stories is not always the easiest thing to do, so please take into consideration the time that these individuals spent writing out these stories and sharing them with us. And to the ones who submitted the stories over to me, I just wanted to give you another thank you for the content that you've provided. And of course, you guys will remain anonymous, and slight details and the names of the individuals within these stories have been altered to protect everyone's identity. So please sit back, put on a good pair of headphones or speakers, and let's begin. This story isn't from my own experience, but rather my dad's. For context, my dad is a police officer, and he is a pretty tough guy. Nothing ever really fazed him. Well, except for one night. On one late night, my dad was on duty. It was a rather slow night with not much activity going on at all. He was just driving around up until he made a stop at an intersection. It was empty, and it was pretty late, so he didn't expect to see anybody. But then he spotted a lady who looked to be in her late 30s to 40s, just standing across the intersection. She just stood there for a good minute or two. Then a car drove by that happened to block her out of view just for a split second. And then all of a sudden, she was already standing next to my dad's car on the passenger side. My dad was in shock and thought to himself, "How the hell did she get over here so fast?" But before he could even grasp the situation at hand, she had already opened the door to his car, made herself in, and sat next to him. Slowly, she turned to look at my dad with a blank stare on her face and asked,
"Can you take me to the gas station?"
My dad couldn't speak. He was just unable to, due to the fear and the dark presence that he felt coming from her. All he could do was nod yes. During this time, my dad claimed to have felt like something had taken over his body. He felt very drowsy, nauseous, almost like he was on autopilot mode. But then the light turned green, and so he proceeded to drive to the nearest gas station that he could think of. While driving, he could feel the gaze of the lady looking at him, but he ignored it and locked eyes with the road. When they finally arrived at the gas station, my dad parked his car, and then the lady had gotten out without saying a word. She just stood there with her back facing the car. My dad didn't stick around long to see what else she'd do, and he actually floored it out of the lot. The further he had gotten away from her, the more he started to feel like himself again. He came back to his senses and could think clearly now. But for some reason, he smelled something, and it had a familiar scent. That's when he leaned over to the passenger side to get a better idea of what it could be. And then it hit. It was a scent of formaldehyde. If you know what I'm talking about, you'd know that formaldehyde has a very distinctive smell, and it'd be hard to confuse it with anything else. If you've been to the funeral home before, it's that scent coming from the corpse when you're nearby. My dad recalls the smell being so strong that he rolled down all the windows as he made his way back to the police station. When he got there, he had asked to end his shift early. My dad tells me that he has never had an experience like this ever. So shaken by it, he had called my grandparents that same night to tell them what happened. And it wasn't long after that they decided to have a hooplee gathering to call for my dad's spirit back. And if you're wondering, my dad did turn out to be okay after all of this. However, every time he tells his story, he's torn between it being a true, supernatural, paranormal experience, that or the lack of sleep he may have gotten the previous night, letting his imagination get the better of him. And though certain things can be explained through plain logic, how do you explain the things that you cannot? I don't know.